Lot 8 on Oak Island is producing evidence that could be more important than anything found in the money pit. Most of it was hiding beneath a 40,000-pound boulder. When that stone was finally lifted, what lay underneath was a man-made stone cradle bonded with mortar dating to the 1200s, sitting on top of lead concentrations 11 times higher than anywhere else on the island.
Rick and Peter arrive on Lot 8 to check on the investigation of the cradle-like formation of stones that were found beneath a 40,000-pound boulder.
The money pit has consumed 2 centuries of effort and millions of dollars. But the strongest chemical and archaeological signatures on Oak Island aren't coming from that famous shaft. They're coming from Lot 8. The 40,000-pound question. The boulder on Lot 8 has drawn curiosity for years, but nobody fully understood what it was until the team got close enough to examine its base. This stone isn't just sitting on the ground the way glacial erratics sit, dropped randomly by retreating ice sheets and left wherever they land. It's propped in position by smaller stones arranged evenly around its perimeter, spaced at regular intervals like a ring of supports, holding the massive rock in place. Archaeologists who examined the arrangement compared it to megalithic construction sites in France and northern Spain, where ancient builders used the same technique to stabilize large stones as part of deliberate structures. These aren't random rocks that tumbled into place over centuries of erosion. The pattern is too uniform. The spacing is too consistent.
So, we just moved these rocks. We didn't want to do anything under them until you were able to see what was underneath.
Sure.
And to me, it looks like we still have disturbed soil underneath them.
Somebody positioned this boulder and then locked it in place using a method with deep roots in medieval European stonework. Before the team could attempt to move it, they sent a snake camera underneath to see what they were dealing with. The images that came back were striking and difficult to dismiss. There was a possible iron stake driven into the ground beneath the boulder. Something that appeared to be a pearl, lodged in the soil, and deeper in the cavity, lumps threaded with golden-colored veins that the team noted had the color and luster of gold. It's important to be clear about what this is and what it isn't. None of these observations have been confirmed by laboratory analysis. No one has run an assay. These are visual impressions captured by a small camera navigating a dark, cramped space beneath 40,000 pounds of rock. The lighting was limited, the angles were constrained, and the material hasn't been touched by human hands. But even with those caveats, the combination is hard to ignore. Metallic objects and unusual materials sitting underneath a deliberately placed megalithic stone. That's the kind of signature you'd expect from a site engineered for concealment. Somebody moved this boulder into position. Somebody packed smaller stones around it to make sure it stayed.
I would like to know if you think I'm crazy, because I don't feel like this is natural at all.
It's not natural, first of all. It just can't be because of the organic matter all around those stones.
And they did all of that using a technique that connects not to colonial Nova Scotia, but to construction traditions rooted in Western Europe centuries earlier. What's beneath the stone? The team brought in a crane and lifted the boulder off its foundation for the first time in what may have been hundreds of years. Archaeologist Fiona Steele led the excavation directly beneath it and uncovered something nobody had documented before on Oak Island: a tightly packed layer of flat stones, arranged in a mosaic-like pattern, forming a cradle-shaped foundation. The stones weren't scattered or loose. They were fitted together deliberately, pressed tight against each other as though assembled to serve as a platform or a base for whatever sat above them. The craftsmanship was visible, even after centuries underground. This wasn't a natural formation shaped by geological pressure. It was built by human hands with clear intent. Steele identified 3 distinct mortar substances holding the stones in place. The first was a fine powder mortar. The second was a blue-gray clay mixed with charcoal, remarkably similar in composition to the puddling clay found deep in the money pit and in excavations on Lot 5. The third was a harder, cement-like material with a different texture and bonding strength from the other 2. 3 different bonding agents in one formation is unusual. It could suggest multiple construction phases carried out over different periods of time, or it could point to a sophisticated building process where different materials were chosen for different structural roles within the same project. Either interpretation implies a level of engineering knowledge that goes well beyond casual construction. Emma Culligan and Dr. Ian Spooner tested the bonding materials and placed them in a window between the post-1200s and the pre-1800s. That range is broad, roughly 6 centuries, but it's the lower bound that matters. If the mortar dates to the 1200s, this foundation was constructed during the medieval period, centuries before the Money Pit's traditional 1795 discovery date, and centuries before European colonists are supposed to have had any reason to visit a small island in Mahone Bay. Spooner also found something in the soil that shifted the conversation entirely from archaeology to chemistry. Lead levels directly beneath the boulder measured 140 parts per million. The island's baseline sits at 12. That's more than 11 times the normal concentration, and the lead wasn't confined to one layer. It was migrating downward through strata of ash and coal, sinking deeper into the earth over what appears to be a very long period. Ash and coal layered with elevated lead is a well-known chemical fingerprint of smelting, the process of heating ore to extract metal from rock. This isn't a storage signature, it's a processing signature. Whoever operated beneath this boulder was working with metals, burning fuel hot enough to separate materials, and leaving behind residue that accumulated and migrated through the soil over the course of centuries. The boulder wasn't covering a hiding place. It may have been covering a workshop. The man who bought the land. Samuel Ball arrived on Oak Island around 1787. He'd been born into slavery in South Carolina sometime around 1764, fought for the British during the American Revolution to earn his freedom, and migrated north to Nova Scotia as a black loyalist, one of thousands of formerly enslaved people who were promised land and a new life in exchange for their service. He arrived in Nova Scotia with almost nothing. No inherited wealth, no family connections in the colony, no capital to speak of. By the time he died in 1846, he owned 9 lots on the island, totaling 36 acres. That included Lot 8 and the plot that encompasses the Money Pit itself. Provincial records listed him as one of the wealthiest individuals in the entire region. His occupation on record was cabbage farming. That single detail has fascinated researchers for well over a century because it doesn't add up. Cabbage farming on a remote island in Mahone Bay does not generate the kind of wealth Ball accumulated. The economics simply don't work. He wasn't running a shipping operation or involved in any documented trade network. He wasn't a merchant with connections to Halifax markets. He grew cabbages on a rocky island accessible only by boat, and somehow amassed enough money to buy lot after lot until he owned more of Oak Island than any single individual before or since. Some researchers have proposed what they consider the most logical explanation. Ball was the first person to actually find something on Oak Island, possibly years before the famous 1795 discovery story even entered the historical record. He lived on the land full-time. He worked the soil daily. He had decades of uninterrupted access to terrain that later treasure hunters would only explore during brief, expensive expeditions. A ground-penetrating radar survey of Ball's property revealed what the team described as a tunnel near his house, an underground feature with no clear agricultural purpose. If Ball stumbled onto underground infrastructure during his years of working the land and methodically extracted material from it, his wealth trajectory makes sense. Without that explanation, nobody has offered a convincing alternative. You don't become one of the wealthiest men in Nova Scotia by selling cabbage. Something else was generating that income, and Ball's proximity to both Lot 8 and the Money Pit puts him at the center of the island's deepest mystery. The artifacts that keep showing up. The boulder and its foundation are the headline finds, but Lot 8 has been producing artifacts for years, and they tell a story of sustained activity spanning an enormous timeline. Gary Drayton recovered a hand-forged iron chopping knife from the soil, dated to the mid-1700s, a working tool from the colonial era.
That is old. It's an handmade spike.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that is cool.
The kind of thing a laborer or a craftsman would have used. He also pulled an iron pintle from the same area, a type of hinge pin with a design that dates as far back as 2000 BC. That's not a typo. The style of pintle found in Lot 8 soil has precedents going back 4,000 years. A rhodolite garnet also turned up in the same vicinity. These 3 objects alone represent an almost impossibly wide range of human activity concentrated on one small piece of ground. But the most provocative find came when Drayton and Jack Begley dug up 2 pieces of a broken copper tube on Lot 8. Inside each fragment was a soft substance that appeared to be parchment, fragile, partially degraded, but still recognizable as an organic material deliberately placed inside a metal casing. That find carries weight far beyond the object itself. A purpose-built copper tube designed to hold preserved material underground is not random debris left behind by a passing traveler. It's a document container, engineered specifically to protect written records from moisture, decay, and the slow crush of burial. Whoever brought it to Lot 8 was literate, deliberate, and methodical about what they chose to bury and how they chose to protect it. If the contents are eventually confirmed as parchment, It would be one of the strongest indicators yet that Lot 8 was part of a planned operation conducted by organized, educated people, not an incidental site where stray objects accumulated by accident. When you lay out the full artifact record from Lot 8, the picture is striking. A hinge type with roots in the ancient world, medieval-era construction materials bonding a stone foundation, a colonial-period chopping knife, a gemstone, and a possible document container with preserved writing inside. No single event explains that range. The evidence points to a site that was used, left dormant, and returned to across centuries, by people who knew it was there and understood what it held. The case against the money pit. The money pit has dominated the Oak Island narrative since 3 teenagers noticed a circular depression in the ground in 1795. Every expedition since that moment has treated the pit as the center of the puzzle, the presumed location of whatever was buried on this island, the singular target worth chasing. Dozens of shafts have been sunk, millions of dollars have been spent. The drilling campaigns alone represent one of the longest sustained excavation efforts in North American history, and after 230 years, nobody has pulled a confirmed treasure object from the money pit, the deepest excavation ever attempted. The caisson program that reached bedrock at over 200 feet found boulders where the vault was supposed to be. The pit has produced tunnels, voids, traces of precious metals dissolved in solution channel water, and fragments that hint at something deeper. It has produced tantalizing evidence that something was there, or might still be there, somewhere in the flooded labyrinth of collapsed shafts and cross tunnels that 2 centuries of excavation have created. Every new season brings another promising reading, another anomaly on the scanner, another reason to keep drilling. But after all of that, the pit has not produced treasure. Now set that against what Lot 8 has delivered. Mortar that may date to the 1200s. Lead levels 11 times the island baseline. Distributed through ash and coal layers, consistent with smelting operations. A 40,000-pound boulder deliberately positioned using megalithic technique over a man-made stone cradle that somebody engineered and bonded with 3 different types of mortar. Artifacts spanning thousands of years of human activity, including a possible document container with preserved parchment inside, and the historical weight of Samuel Ball, a man who owned Lot 8, owned the land around the money pit, lived on the island for nearly 60 years, and became one of the wealthiest men in the province while his neighbors assumed he was farming cabbage. The money pit has a story. Lot 8 has evidence. Fred Nolan spent decades arguing that Oak Island's treasure was never concentrated in a single shaft. He believed it was distributed across multiple sites on the island, hidden within a system designed so that no one excavation could expose the whole picture. For years, that theory lived on the margins, while the money pit consumed all the funding and attention. But the current body of evidence is moving Nolan's idea toward the center of the conversation. And within Nolan's framework, Lot 8, with its convergence of physical construction, chemical signatures, artifact diversity, and historical connections, may be the single most significant site on the island. Not the money pit. The lot beside it, sitting in plain sight beneath a boulder that nobody thought to lift until now. 2 centuries of digging have focused on one hole. The evidence from Lot 8 suggests the real story may have been sitting on the surface the whole time, under a rock that everyone walked past. We covered the theory that the money pit may be just one node in a larger distributed system, with multiple underground chambers spread across the island. If Lot 8 changes how you think about Oak Island's layout, that one takes the idea even further.